Hello and welcome to episode 8 of The Actual Magician Explains, where today we're going to be looking at an incredible secret hidden in plain sight in the Waite-Smith Tarot deck. This was something that was first revealed by myself and co-author Tarly Goodwin in our book published by Llewellyn Worldwide, Secrets of the Waite-Smith Tarot in 2015. Our journey here is based in Kent and East Sussex, and on the map you can see particularly the two areas of Tenterden and Winchelsea. And particularly in Tenterden, we are taking a look at Smallhythe Place, the residence at the time of our story of Ellen Terry, Dame Ellen Terry, the actress known to Pamela Colman Smith, the artist of the Waite-Smith Tarot. Further down on the coast, but not too far away, we have Winchelsea and particularly Strand Gate and Tower Cottage. Tower Cottage was also owned by Ellen Terry, and it's where visitors to Smallhythe Place would often stay. As you can see on the map, Winchelsea is just south down the coast from Folkestone, and Winchelsea was one of the 5 original shipbuilding ports on the south coast of England, and this is featured on its coat of arms, which also features on the 10 of Pentacles, as we'll come to see. Now, whilst the landscape is of interest to us in 1909, our story is actually going to start back in 1903, when Pamela Colman Smith was working with Jack Yeats, brother of W.B. Yeats, the famous poet, and she was working on something called the Green Sheaf. She had actually visited Ireland with both Willie W.B. Yeats and Jack Yeats earlier in 1901 and met Lady Gregory, who had translated an Irish poem by the blind poet Rafferty, which we'll come to see in a moment, is at the heart of the landscape of the Waite-Smith Tarot. So the poem by Rafferty of Killedean, or County Mayo, goes as follows. And apologies for any mispronunciations. Killedean is the village in which everything grows. There are blackberries and raspberries in it, and fruit of every kind. If I were only to be standing in the middle of my people, the age would go from me, and I would be young again. There be's wheat there, and oats, growth of barley and of flax, I in the ear of corn, bread of flour and meat, people who make poteen, selling it there without a licence, the great nobles of the country, there playing and drinking. There is a planting and a ploughing there, and top-dressing without manure. There is many a thing there of which I have not spoken yet. Kilns and mills working and never resting. Sorrow talk there is about a penny of rent, nor anything of the kind. There is every sort of timber there that were fit to put down. There is sycamore and beech in it, hazel, fir and ash, box and holly, yew, birch and rowanberry. There is the cuckoo and the thrush answering each other there, the blackbird hatching over against them, the goldfinch, the woodcock, the linnet in a cage there. And so it continues about this hill of heart's desire, this perfect place. There is no sickness, no disease, no plague, no death there, but priests and clerics praying to the saints. The goat has kids, the sow has bonhams, and the milk cow is lowing as she goes towards the woman. The water is in the lake and the rivers filled, the weirs are constructed and the nets in working order. The fawn and the deer and every kind of game is there, and so it continues about the music of the hounds, and with the rise of the sun you would lift up your heart. There are gentlemen on steeds and horsemen being tried, hunting all through and other until comes the night. Drink for the hundreds and beds to lie down. The orphan and the widow get assistance and redemption. Again, we've got immediate links to the tarot cards with the 5 of Pentacles, for example. A way to get food and clothes and land without rent. Poor scholars get writing and schooling and learning there, the 3 of Pentacles. and the people who ask alms are drawing and journeying thither. It overcame the world for all its good qualities. And that's a brief section of the Killedean or County Mayo poem. But the version by Lady Gregory was translated and used in the first Green Sheaf, and Pamela illustrated it to that poem, to Killedean or County Mayo, and called it the Hill of Heart's Desire. And we're going to see that then set the seed for the landscape from which the entire Waite-Smith Tarot deck then draws. But before we return to the poem and the landscape that Pamela drew in 1903 to illustrate that poem, let's return to 1909, the year in which Pamela Colman Smith drew the entire deck of tarot cards, probably within a 5-month period. In our research for Secrets of the Waite-Smith Tarot, we discovered for the first time dated evidence that Pamela Colman Smith was staying at Smallhythe Place in 1909 in the summer when she was likely to have been working on the tarot cards. It's entirely possible that the tarot cards were created during a 5-month period, and we can see a lot of the influences of the place in the cards themselves. Here we see Pamela dancing around a bonfire. Pamela is the blurry figure to the right of this picture, and we can perhaps see some of the general spirit of that time and that place in cards such as the Three of Cups. Here we see the terrace of Smallhythe Place, and it was being constructed at the time, and we have a lot of unpublished photographs of the people who were staying there, mainly women. Somebody called it a gypsy encampment of actors and actresses, and we have scenes of them cavorting about with some of the staves that are being used for the trellis work, and we can see that in cards such as the 10 of Wands, the 4 of Wands, and the 5 of Wands. It's highly likely, as again we'll come to see, that cards such as the Queen of Wands were actually posed for Pamela to draw in situ. One interesting thing is that we didn't at the time, and at the time of visits to Smallhythe Place, have any evidence that there was a model for the 6 of Swords where we have a boatman, but then we did find a dated older photograph, and there was at one time, which is not now present, a small area of water at the back of the property with the said boat. So we know that Pamela Colman Smith stayed at Smallhythe Place or Tower Cottage, and we can see, most importantly, items such as the Strand Gate that is literally outside the Tower Cottage owned by Ellen Terry appears in one of the sketches that Pamela made at the time. And we even have a photograph of our site visit there, which shows exactly where Pamela would have been standing to draw that sketch. And then we can see that the Strand Gate, the Tower Cottage, the strange oval building that's actually a water tower within Winchelsea, the church and other stylised representations of Winchelsea make it into other Pamela Colman Smith drawings, particularly of a traveller, particularly of a wayfarer, particularly of Jack in the Giant's Tales and so forth. In fact, she drew a stylised version of the landscape with a boat in the distance for a book called The Book of Friendly Giants, which she illustrated. So having said that, let's actually take a look now back at the Hill of Heart's Desire that she was drawing on 6 years later in order to weave an entire narrative and design narrative within the tarot cards themselves. So based on the Golden Dawn Book T notes, which we believe Waite would have given her, thereby breaking his own oath because she wasn't of a suitable grade in the Golden Dawn to receive those notes, And that's why he hedged his bets when he said that she was particularly psychic or intuitive, and the fact that he had to almost remove her from the presence of other magicians in order for her to not be influenced by them whilst she was designing the deck. We do believe that that is because she was at Smallhythe. She wasn't actually at London at the time of the deck. So let's take a look at where we can see these cards within the narrative, within the idealised Smallhythe, within the idealised Winchelsea, that makes it all the way back to the Hill of Heart's Desire and the idealised landscape that Rafferty was talking about in his poem. So now we come to the actual illustration by Pamela of the Hill of Heart's Desire, featured in Green Sheaf, the first issue in 1903. We can see the blind poet Rafferty to the left of the picture, and we're going to pan to the right of the picture in a moment, but let's take a look at what we can see here first. The very first thing I draw your attention to in this picture, which was obviously created just 6 years before the Waite-Smith Tarot was drawn by Pamela, is the two figures at the forefront of the screen, and they are pointing across towards the house to the left with the traditional red tiled roof that we see in that area of Winchelsea and Tenterden. We can see very clearly that this is the model for the 10 of Cups, with the same house and the same couple, just with the addition of the two dancing figures, and the rivers that we see in the distance winding around this idyllic scene are also in the Hill of Heart's Desire. And in the centre of the picture we see again the idealised form of Winchelsea, with the gate and with the towers and with the red roofs that we have seen elsewhere. But out of that gate comes a horse and chariot, dare we say, perhaps a horse and carriage in this scene, but it is obviously the model for the chariot riding out of Winchelsea behind it that we see on the chariot card itself. When we look to the left of the picture, we see that the model for the blasted tower in the same landscape is actually a lime kiln, a kiln that actually was used in Ireland in order to process lime and limestone, and therefore the model of the blasted tower is a lime kiln, which fits its capacity for destruction as well. Furthermore, when we take an even closer look in the picture down towards the lime kiln tower, there is a perhaps disconsolate or hard-working figure in silhouette in a potato field, and this is exactly the model that we see on the Seven of Pentacles, which, as we've identified elsewhere, is leaning on a potato hoe in front of a blighted potato crop in reference to the Irish famine. This in fact meets the Golden Dawn original description of the card that Pamela was likely using from a document that was called Book T, and in that it specifically states for the Seven of Pentacles that it is a worker of the land but a loser thereof, i.e. it's work that comes to nothing. Perhaps also we can go as far to see a figure with a stick and perhaps a companion by their feet, or perhaps it's just the grass, up at the cliff edge that we see in the upper centre of the image itself, and this can stand as our model of the Fool. Furthermore, we have someone carrying perhaps a bushel on their back across to the centre left, and we can see that as our model for the 10 of Wands. Furthermore, there's someone on horseback riding with a wand or stave or perhaps a spear that we see in the upper left, and this is our model for the Knight of Wands. So in effect, we can already see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, perhaps 7 aspects of the tarot cards within this one image created 6 years prior to the deck itself. Most importantly, we can see that Pamela was drawing a unified landscape. The tarot is her Hill of Heart's Desire. It is one symbolic landscape, and each of the cards is merely one angle looking into that same landscape, a world in itself. So, panning to the right of the Hill of Heart's Desire, one of the first things we can note is the fact that this is an estuary or a coastal location, and in fact we have the ships in port and shipbuilding going on, we can presume, because that's one of the activities that was well known in Winchelsea itself. I'd also like to bring our attention to the 2 monks in front of the church in the bottom right hand corner. They are discussing things, and this is something that is alluded to in the poem of the learned men and the priests talking to each other, and we see that of course in the 3 of Pentacles. And slightly above the church to the right is a towered building, and we can perhaps presume that our erstwhile figures on the 2 and 3 of Wands are looking out at the ships going out of the port from that location. So in the Hill of Heart's Desire, we can see that Pamela Coleman-Smith has this idealised landscape. It's part Irish poetry, it's part the actual place of Winchelsea, it's part her storytelling love of the ships and the land. It's also infused with a Celtic sensibility. It's also then overlaid with her designs using the stories from Shakespeare and the plays that she was familiar with to really engage with Book T in the Golden Dawn and produce a cohesive model within the tarot itself. So in effect, Waite brought the structure of the Golden Dawn to the deck and his understanding of Christian mysticism through the Tree of Life, through the illustrations of the Hallows in the Grail myth and so forth, but also Pamela Coleman-Smith brought a synthetic landscape to ensure that there's a sort of unconscious similarity to the images, that a little bit like in a dream, we actually recognise that there is a landscape here, a commonality that we are exploring. And of course, when we shuffle the deck, we are consciously and unconsciously navigating this landscape so that we can see it from lots of different places. And this is in effect how we do a tarot card reading. We are looking at anyone's life in the past, present and future through one lens, and we're looking at different shuffled aspects of it. And in effect, we are always exploring our own Hill of Heart's Desire through the cards that Pamela crafted so expertly. So in conclusion then, we have seen that the greatest secret of the tarot hidden in plain sight is that it is one landscape, that landscape is the Hill of Heart's Desire. And I hope in this presentation, in this video explainer, we've seen that this is partly what contributes to the success and the utility of the Waite-Smith deck, that it has a structure underneath it, both esoterically, spiritually, but also in terms of its design as well. I'd like to thank you for engaging with the video, and I look forward to seeing you in a further video, and in the meantime, the worker is hidden in the workshop.